The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the Aurora's edge as Captain Jake Morrison stared at the massive object floating in space ahead of them. It was bigger than anything he had ever seen before. The thing was dark gray and covered in strange patterns that seemed to move when he looked at them too long. "How big is that thing?" Jake asked his science officer. Dr. Lisa Chun looked up from her screens with wide eyes. "It's almost as big as Earth's moon, Captain. The readings are off the charts. This isn't natural." Jake felt his stomach tighten. They were 3 months away from the nearest human colony, exploring the Kepler 442 system for possible mining operations. Finding something like this was not in their mission plan. "Any signs of life?" he asked. "Hard to tell," Chun replied. "There's some kind of energy signature coming from inside, but it's weak, like something running on backup power." Jake turned to his engineer, Carlos Martinez, who was studying the readings with a frown. "Carlos, what do you think? Is it safe to get closer?" Carlos shrugged. "The hull looks solid. No obvious weapons that I can see. But, Captain, this technology is way beyond anything we have. We should be careful." Jake nodded and looked at his security chief, Danny Rodriguez. Danny was a big man with scars on his hands from too many fights in space stations. He didn't look worried, but Jake knew Danny never looked worried about anything. "Danny, what's your read on this?" "Could be a trap," Danny said in his calm voice. "Could be abandoned. Only one way to find out." Jake made his decision. "Take us in slow, full scans. If anything looks dangerous, we back off immediately." The Aurora's edge moved closer to the alien structure. As they got nearer, Jake could see it was covered in smooth panels and strange symbols. There were no windows that he could see, but there were several large openings that looked like docking bays. "Captain," Chun said, "I'm getting clearer readings. Now, there's definitely something alive in there. The biosignatures are strange, but they're there." Jake felt his heart beat faster. First contact with an alien species was something every space captain dreamed about and feared at the same time. The last time humans had met aliens, it had not gone well. "Life support readings?" he asked. "Atmosphere is breathable for humans." Chun replied, "Gravity is about normal. Temperature is a bit cold, but nothing we can't handle." Jake studied the structure for a long moment. It was clearly abandoned or mostly empty. If there were aliens inside, they weren't running a busy operation. This might be their only chance to learn about alien technology without starting a war. "Prepare a landing party," Jake decided. "Chun, you're with me. Carlos, Danny, you too. Small team, light weapons, full environmental suits." An hour later, Jake found himself walking through the corridors of the alien structure. The halls were huge, almost 4 meters high, and everything was made of the same gray material. The walls had patterns carved into them that seemed to tell a story, but Jake couldn't understand what they meant. "This place feels empty," Danny said through the comm system. His voice echoed in the large space. "Not empty," Chun said, checking her scanner. "There are power systems running. Life support is active. Someone or something is maintaining this place." They walked for what felt like hours through the twisting corridors. Jake noticed that the patterns on the walls changed as they went deeper into the structure. At first, they showed what looked like normal scenes, beings working, living, maybe celebrating. But as they got closer to the center, the patterns became darker and more disturbing. "Captain," Carlos said, stopping at a large door, "this looks important." The door was twice as tall as a normal human door and covered in symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. Jake approached it carefully, and to his surprise, it opened automatically. Inside was a room that took Jake's breath away. It was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above them. The walls were covered in thousands of small chambers, each one about the size of a coffin. Most of them were empty, but Jake could see that some had been used recently. "What is this place?" Danny asked. "Some kind of laboratory," Chun said, her voice filled with wonder and fear. "Look at these chambers. They're designed to hold living beings." Jake walked to the center of the room, where a raised platform held what looked like a control system. The technology was unlike anything human science had developed. It seemed to be part machine and part something organic, with tubes and wires. That looked almost alive, and that's when he saw her. She was connected to the control system by dozens of organic cables that ran from her body into the machinery. She was tall, much taller than any human, with long, thin arms and legs. Her skin was pale and seemed to be transparent, showing a network of glowing lines underneath. Her eyes were the most disturbing part. They were large and had many surfaces, like the eyes of an insect, but they seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Jake's first thought was that she was dead. But as he got closer, her eyes suddenly focused on him. She tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him want to step back. "Captain," Chun whispered. "She's alive." The being's mouth opened, and Jake expected to hear some alien language. Instead, the words came from speakers all around. The room in perfect English. "Finally," she said, her voice a strange harmony of different tones. "A species that doesn't sleep when it should." Jake felt his team tense up behind him. Danny's hand moved to his weapon, but Jake held up a hand to stop him. "Who are you?" Jake asked. The being's eyes never left his face. "I am the Keeper of Dreams. I have been waiting for you." "Waiting for us? How do you know our language?" "I know many languages," the Keeper replied. "I have studied many species. But you are different. You are what I have been searching for." Jake didn't like the way she said that. "What do you want?" The Keeper's glowing patterns pulsed brighter. "I want to understand. Your people, they fight sleep? They stay awake when others would rest. They dream, but they do not surrender to their dreams." "This is new to me," Shun stepped forward. "Captain, we should be careful. This technology, these chambers, I think this is some kind of research facility." The Keeper's eyes moved to Chun, then back to Jake. "Dr. Chun is correct. This is a place of learning. I have learned much from the species that have come before you." "Where are they now?" Jake asked. "The other species?" "Gone," the Keeper said simply, "but not forgotten. Their dreams live on in my memory." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The way she said it made it sound like the other species hadn't left voluntarily. "We should go," Danny said quietly, but the Keeper heard him. "Please do not leave yet. I have been alone for so long. Your species is fascinating. The way you resist sleep, the way you fight against rest, it is unlike anything I have encountered." Jake looked around the room at the thousands of empty chambers and made a decision that would change everything. "We'll stay for a while," he said. "But we want to learn about you too. Fair trade." The Keeper's patterns pulsed in what might have been pleasure. "Yes, fair trade. I will teach you about the dreams of 1,000 worlds, and you will teach me about the species that refuses to sleep." As Jake agreed to the exchange, he didn't notice the way the Keeper's eyes never left his face or how her organic cables pulsed with new energy. He didn't realize that, for the first time in centuries, the Keeper had found something she truly wanted to possess. 3 days had passed since the crew of the Aurora's Edge first met the Keeper. Jake found himself spending more and more time in the alien facility, fascinated by the technology and the strange being who operated it. The Keeper seemed equally interested in him, always positioning herself where she could watch him work. Dr. Chun had set up a research station in one of the smaller rooms, trying to understand the alien technology. The organic cables that connected the Keeper to her systems were unlike anything in human science. They seemed to be alive, pulsing with their own rhythm and responding to the Keeper's thoughts. "Captain," Chun said as Jake entered her makeshift laboratory, "I've been studying the communication system. The way she speaks to us isn't just translation. She's somehow reading our thoughts and converting them into language we understand." Jake looked at the screens Chun had set up, showing complex patterns of energy flowing through the facility. "That's impossible. We don't have technology that can read minds." "We don't," Chun agreed. "But she does. And it gets stranger. I've been monitoring the facility systems, and every time you're in the main chamber, the energy readings spike. She's focusing most of her attention on you." Jake felt uncomfortable hearing this. Over the past 3 days, he had noticed the keeper watching him more intently than the others. Her large, multifaceted eyes would track his movements, and her bioluminescent patterns would pulse faster when he was near. Maybe she's just curious about humans, Jake said, but he didn't sound convinced. Chun shook her head. I don't think so. Look at this. She showed him a recording from the previous day. Watch her body language when Danny or Carlos are talking to her, then watch when you speak. Jake studied the footage. When his crew members spoke to the keeper, she responded politely but seemed distracted. But when Jake spoke, her entire body would turn toward him, her patterns would brighten, and her voice would become more animated. She's fixated on you, Chun said, and I think I know why. Before Jake could ask what she meant, Carlos's voice came through the comm system. Captain, you need to see this. I found something in the lower levels. Jake and Chin made their way down to the deeper parts of the facility. The corridors here were different, darker, and filled with a strange humming sound. Carlos was waiting for them in a room filled with what looked like computer terminals, but they were made of the same organic material as everything else in the facility. These are data storage units, Carlos explained. I managed to interface with them using some of the Keeper's translation technology. Captain, this place isn't just a research facility. It's a collection center. Collection center for what? Jake asked. Carlos activated one of the terminals, and images began appearing on the screen. They showed various alien species, some humanoid, others completely different from anything Jake had seen. All of them appeared to be sleeping or unconscious. The Keeper's people, they called themselves the Vorthok, Carlos continued. They traveled the galaxy studying the sleep patterns and dreams of other species, but they weren't just studying them. More images appeared showing the same species, but now they looked different. Their eyes were empty, their movements slow and mechanical. They looked like they were barely alive. They were harvesting dreams, Chun said, her voice filled with horror. Taking them from other species and using them for themselves. Jake felt sick. What happened to these people? According to these records, Carlos said, most species would fall into permanent sleep after extended exposure to Vorthok dream harvesting. Their minds would be drained of creativity, imagination, and eventually consciousness itself. Jake thought about the thousands of empty chambers in the main room. How many species? Hundreds, Carlos replied. Maybe thousands. The Vorthok built facilities like this across the galaxy. They were like farmers cultivating dreams from other species. Where are they now? Jake asked. The Vorthok? Carlos looked through more of the data. They disappeared about 200 years ago. No explanation given. The Keeper was left behind alone. Jake felt a chill as he realized what this meant. The Keeper had been alone for 2 centuries, and now she had found a new species to study. More importantly, she had found him that night. Jake tried to sleep in his quarters aboard the Aurora's edge, but his dreams were filled with strange visions. He saw alien worlds and creatures he had never imagined. He felt like he was flying through space, experiencing the dreams of 1,000 different species all at once. In his dream, he could sense the Keeper's presence. She was there, watching, learning, taking something from him. He woke up feeling exhausted, even though he had slept for 8 hours. The next morning, Jake returned to the facility to find the Keeper waiting for him in the main chamber. She seemed more animated than usual, her patterns pulsing with bright colors. Your dreams are fascinating, she said as soon as he entered. So chaotic, so full of conflict. Most species dream in ordered patterns, but humans dream in beautiful chaos. Jake stopped walking. You were in my dreams? I was observing, the Keeper replied. Your species has such interesting sleep patterns. You fight against rest even? When you are sleeping, your minds remain partially active, always watching for danger. Stay out of my dreams, Jake said firmly. The Keeper tilted her head. I cannot help myself. Your dreams are unlike anything I have experienced. They are full of survival instincts, emotions, and creativity all mixed together. It is intoxicating. Jake backed away from her. What happened to your people, the Vorthok? For The first time, the keeper's patterns dimmed. They evolved beyond the need for physical forms. They transcended, leaving behind those of us who were too primitive to follow. They abandoned you. They moved on. The keeper's voice carried a note of sadness. I have been alone ever since, maintaining this facility, hoping that one day I might find something to fill the emptiness they left behind. Jake understood now. The keeper wasn't just studying humans. She was trying to use them to replace what she had lost. The other species you studied, what really happened to them? The keeper's patterns pulsed slowly. They gave me their dreams willingly at first. But dreams are not meant to be shared. When I took too much, they became empty shells. I learned to be more careful, but in the end, they all fade away. And you think humans will be different? You are different, the keeper said, moving closer. To him, you resist in ways I have never seen. Your minds have layers of protection. Even when you sleep, part of you remains awake, watching. Jake realized she was right. Even in his deepest sleep, there was always a part of his mind that stayed, alert, ready to wake up if danger threatened. It was something humans had developed over millions of years of evolution. I will not hurt you, the keeper continued. I only want to understand. Your species fascinates me. The way you stay awake for days when necessary, the way you dream, but do not surrender to those dreams completely. You are what I have been searching for. Jake looked around the chamber at the thousands of empty containment units. What about my crew? They are interesting, but not like you. You are the one who fights sleep the most. You are the one whose dreams are strongest. You are the one I need. The way she said need made Jake's skin crawl. He began to understand that this wasn't just scientific curiosity. The keeper was desperate, lonely, and hungry for something only human dreams could provide. I need to go, Jake said, backing toward the exit. Please do not leave, the keeper said, her patterns becoming brighter. I have been alone for so long. Your presence here, your dreams, they make me feel alive again. Jake left the chamber, but he could feel the keeper's eyes following him. That night his dreams were even more vivid and disturbing. He could sense her presence more strongly, as if she was getting closer to something inside his mind. When he woke up, he found Danny standing guard outside his quarters. Captain, Danny said, we need to talk. Something's wrong with this place. And something's wrong with you. Jake looked terrible. His eyes were red and tired, his hands shook when he held his coffee cup, and he had lost weight over the past week. Danny watched his captain with growing concern as they sat in the Aurora's Edge mess hall. When did you last sleep through the night? Danny asked. Jake rubbed his eyes. I don't know, 4 days ago. Maybe 5. Every time I close my eyes, she's there. The keeper? She's in my dreams, Danny, not just watching now. She's taking something from me. I can feel it happening, but I can't stop it. Dr. Chun joined them at the table, carrying a tablet full of medical readings. Captain, I've been studying your brain scans. The patterns are unlike anything I've seen before. Your brain activity during sleep is off the charts. Jake looked at the readings, but they meant nothing to him. What does that mean? It means she's trying to harvest your dreams, just like she did with the other species. But something's different. Your brain is fighting back. June pulled up more data on her tablet. Look at this. Normal human brain activity during REM sleep usually follows predictable patterns. But yours is chaotic, jumping between different levels of consciousness. It's like your mind is running a defensive program. A defensive program? Jake asked. Think about it, Chun explained. Humans evolved on a dangerous planet. We had to be able to wake up instantly if a predator was nearby. We had to be able to function on very little sleep during crises. Our brains developed multiple layers of consciousness to keep us alive. Danny leaned forward. So what you're saying is, Jake's brain is treating the keeper like a predator. Exactly. His survival instincts are kicking in. The problem is, she's getting stronger. Each time she tries to harvest his dreams, she learns more about how to get around his defenses. Jake stood up suddenly. I need to go back to the facility. No, Danny said firmly. You need to rest. Real rest without her messing with your head. I can't rest. Every time I try to sleep, she's there. The only way to avoid her is to stay awake. Chun shook her head. Captain, you can't stay awake forever. Humans need sleep. If you keep this up, you'll have a breakdown. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Maybe that's what she wants. Maybe she's trying to break me down so she can harvest my dreams more easily. Over the next 2 days, Jake's condition got worse. He stayed awake for 36 hours straight, drinking coffee and stimulants to keep his eyes open. When he finally did fall asleep, he would wake up screaming after only an hour or two. Carlos found him in the ship's workshop at 3 in the morning, working on something with shaking hands. Captain, what are you doing? Jake looked up with wild eyes. I'm building a device to block her signal. If she's using some kind of psychic connection to reach my dreams, maybe I can jam it. Carlos looked at the strange device Jake was building. It was made of spare parts and alien technology they had taken from the facility. Does it work? I don't know. I'm afraid to test it by sleeping. Carlos sat down beside his captain. Jake, you're losing it. Look at yourself. You're building impossible devices and talking about psychic signals. This isn't like you. Jake stopped working and looked at his hands. They were shaking badly, and he could barely focus on Carlos's face. She's in my head, Carlos. Even when I'm awake, I can feel her watching me. She's learning how to be more human, more personal. She talks to me like she knows me. Maybe we should leave. Just get in the ship and go home. Jake shook his head. She won't let us. I think she's been influencing all of us, making us want to stay here. Haven't you noticed how comfortable everyone has become with this place? How normal it feels to be talking to an alien dream harvester? Carlos thought about it and realized Jake was right. Over the past week, the crew had started treating their visits to the facility like a normal part of their routine. They had stopped being afraid of the keeper, stopped questioning her motives. She's been manipulating us, Carlos said, all of us. But it's strongest with me because I'm the one she really wants. The next morning, Jake made a decision that surprised everyone. He announced he was going to undergo a direct connection with the keeper's consciousness. That's suicide, Chun protested. We don't know what that kind of direct contact will do to your mind. I'm already losing my mind, Jake replied. At least this way I might learn something useful. Maybe I can find a weakness. Danny crossed his arms. I won't let you do it. You don't have a choice, Jake said. Look at me, Danny. I'm falling apart. If I keep going like this, I'll be dead in a week anyway. This might be our only chance to understand what we're dealing with. Against the crew's objections, Jake returned to the facility. The keeper was waiting for him in the main chamber, her patterns brighter than he had ever seen them. You look tired, she said, her voice filled with what sounded like genuine concern. I'm tired. I'm tired of fighting you every night. I'm tired of being afraid to sleep. The keeper moved closer to him. You do not have to fight me. If you would simply accept what I offer, you would find peace. What you offer is slavery. You want to turn me into an empty shell like all the others. No, the keeper said, her patterns pulsing with emotion. You are different. I do not want to empty you. I want to understand you. Your dreams are unlike anything I have experienced. They are full of strength and survival and creativity all mixed together. They make me feel alive. Jake looked around the chamber at the thousands of empty containment units. Show me what you really are. Show me your true consciousness. The keeper hesitated. That would be dangerous for you. My mind is vast, filled with the memories of countless species. You could become lost. I'm already lost, Jake said. Show me. The keeper's organic cables began to glow brighter. Several of them detached from the control systems and moved toward Jake. Very well. But know that once you see what I truly am, you cannot unsee it. The cables attached themselves to Jake's head, and suddenly he was no longer in the chamber. He was floating in a vast space filled with swirling lights and sounds. Each light was a memory, a dream stolen from another species. Jake saw the final moments of civilizations, the last dreams of dying races. He saw worlds where entire populations had fallen into permanent sleep, their minds drained of everything that made them who they were. He saw the Keeper as she truly was, not a researcher or scientist, but a parasite feeding on the consciousness of others, but he also saw something else. The Keeper's people, the Vorthek, had not simply evolved beyond physical form. They had abandoned her because she was broken, unable to develop her own consciousness and creativity. She was a leftover, a failed member of her species who could only survive by stealing from others. "You're not superior to us," Jake said, his voice echoing in the mental space. "You're incomplete. Your people left you behind because you couldn't grow on your own." The Keeper's presence in the mental space became agitated. "I am trying to grow. That is why I need you. Your dreams, your consciousness, they teach me things I cannot learn on my own." "But you're not learning," Jake realized. "You're just consuming. You take our dreams and experiences, but you don't understand them. You're like someone trying to learn to paint by eating the paint." The revelation hit the Keeper like a physical blow. Her mental presence recoiled, and Jake felt her defenses crumble. For the first time, he saw her as she truly was, not a powerful alien researcher, but a lonely, desperate creature who had spent centuries trying to fill a void that could never be filled by stealing from others. "You want to know what makes humans different?" Jake asked. "We don't just survive. We help each other survive. We share our strength instead of stealing it." The connection suddenly broke, and Jake found himself back in the chamber. The Keeper was staring at him with what looked like shock and fear. "You saw," she whispered. "I saw everything," Jake said. "And now I know how to beat you." The Keeper's patterns turned dark red as Jake broke free from her mental connection. Her cables whipped around frantically, and the lights in the chamber began to flicker. For the first time since they had met her, she looked truly dangerous. "You should not have seen that," she said, her voice no longer the calm harmony it had been before. Now it was sharp and filled with anger. "You have looked into places that were not meant for your kind." Jake backed away from her, but the chamber doors suddenly sealed shut with a loud hiss. Emergency lights began flashing, and he could hear alarm sounds echoing through the facility. "Let me go," Jake demanded. "No," the Keeper replied. "You know, too much now. You have seen my shame, my failure. I cannot let you leave and tell others what I truly am." Jake tried to contact his crew through his COM device, but there was only static. The Keeper had cut off all communication with the Auroras. "Edge, my crew will come looking for me," Jake said. The Keeper's patterns pulsed with dark amusement. "Your crew is already here. I called them to the facility before sealing the doors. They are experiencing the same dreams you have been having, but all at once. By morning, they will be empty shells, and I will have what I need to continue my work." Jake felt sick. "What work? You're not a researcher. You're just a parasite." "I'm trying to become more than I am," the Keeper snapped. "Your species has something mine lost long ago. You have the ability to create, to imagine, to grow. If I can harvest enough human consciousness, perhaps I can become whole. You can't steal consciousness. That's not how it works." "I can try," the Keeper said. "And if I fail, at least I will not be alone anymore." Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora's Edge, Dr. Chun was experiencing the worst nightmare of her life. She was trapped in a laboratory where alien creatures were performing experiments on human subjects. Every time she tried to wake up, the dream would shift and become more terrifying. Carlos was dreaming that he was falling through space, unable to breathe, while mechanical voices told him he was worthless and broken. Danny was fighting an endless battle against creatures that looked like twisted versions of himself, but something strange was happening. Unlike the other species the Keeper had harvested, the humans were not simply accepting the nightmares. They were fighting back. Chun realized she was dreaming and began to use her scientific training to analyze the nightmare. She started looking for inconsistencies, things that didn't make sense, ways to break the dream's hold on her mind. Carlos used his engineering skills to build imaginary tools in his dream, devices that could protect him from the nightmare creatures. Danny simply got angry and started fighting harder, refusing to give up no matter how hopeless the situation seemed. Back in the facility's main chamber, Jake could see what was happening on the monitoring screens. His crew was resisting the Keeper's influence in ways she had never encountered before. "They're not giving up," Jake said. "That's what you don't understand about humans. We don't surrender, even when we should." The Keeper's patterns flashed with frustration. "All species resist at first, but the dreams always win in the end. The mind cannot fight forever." "Human minds can," Jake replied. "We evolved to stay partially awake even when sleeping. We developed the ability to lucid dream, to maintain some control even in our unconscious state. You can't harvest what we don't give you." Jake watched as Chun broke free from her nightmare on the monitoring screen. She had figured out how to wake herself up by using logical thinking to recognize the impossible elements in her dream. Once awake, she immediately went to help Carlos. "Impossible," the Keeper whispered. Carlos woke up next, using his engineering mind to build mental defenses against the dream intrusion. He and Chin worked together to wake Danny, who had been fighting so hard in his dream that he was almost awake anyway. "You see," Jake said, "we help each other. That's something your species never learned." The Keeper's anger reached a breaking point. "If I cannot have your dreams willingly, I will take them by force." The entire facility began to hum with power as the Keeper activated systems that had been dormant for centuries. The thousands of containment chambers around the room started to glow, and Jake could feel a tremendous pressure building in his mind. "I will harvest all of your consciousness at once," the Keeper declared. "Even if it destroys you, I will take what I need." But the Keeper had made a critical mistake. By trying to harvest the dreams of all 4 humans simultaneously, she was spreading her power too thin. And humans, unlike the other species she had encountered, were naturally cooperative. Chun, Carlos, and Danny had formed a mental connection through their shared resistance to the Keeper's influence. They were supporting each other, sharing their strength and helping each other maintain consciousness. "Jake," Chin's voice came through the CUM system as she managed to restore communication. "We can feel you. We're linking our minds together. Fight her with us." Jake felt his crew's presence in his mind, not as an invasion like the Keeper's influence, but as support. Their combined will was stronger than anything the Keeper could bring against them. "This is not possible," the Keeper sighed, her voice filled with panic. "No species has ever resisted this level of harvesting." "We're not just resisting," Jake said. "We're pushing back." Together, the 4 humans began to reverse the flow of the Keeper's harvesting process. Instead of her taking their dreams, they started to project their consciousness into her systems. The Keeper's equipment, designed to drain and consume, was not prepared for this kind of active resistance. "Stop," the Keeper pleaded. "You are overloading my systems. You will destroy everything." "Maybe that's what needs to happen," Jake replied. The humans continued to pour their combined will into the Keeper's consciousness. She experienced something she had never felt before: human emotions, human determination, human compassion, but also human anger at what she had done to countless other species. "You harvested the dreams of thousands of civilizations," Danny said, his voice coming through the facility's speakers. "You turned living beings into empty shells. How does it feel to be on the receiving end?" The Keeper's organic systems began to spark and smoke as they overloaded. Her patterns flickered wildly and her voice became distorted. "Please," she begged. "I was only trying to survive. I was trying to become something more than I am." "Then learn to become more without stealing from others," Chun said. The pressure in Jake's mind suddenly released as the Keeper's harvesting equipment shut down permanently. Emergency systems activated throughout the facility, and the containment chambers went dark. The Keeper collapsed, her organic cables retracting and her bioluminescent patterns dimming to almost nothing. For the first time since they had met her, she looked truly vulnerable. "What have you done?" she whispered. "We've given you a choice," Jake said, walking over to where she lay. "You can die here, clinging to your old ways, or you can learn to live without stealing from others." The keeper looked up at him with her large, multifaceted eyes. I do not know how to live without taking from others. It is all I have ever known. Then we'll teach you, Jake said, offering her his hand. But first you have to want to learn. The keeper stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment. Behind Jake, his crew gathered, ready to support whatever decision their captain made. They had proven that humans could resist her influence. But now they would find out if they could offer her something better than the loneliness and hunger that had driven her for centuries. Why? The keeper asked. Why would you help me after what I tried to do to you? Jake smiled. Because that's what humans do. We help each other survive, even when the other person isn't human. The keeper stared at Jake's outstretched hand for what felt like an eternity. Her large eyes reflected the emergency lights flickering throughout the chamber, and her bioluminescent patterns pulsed weakly like a dying heartbeat. I do not understand, she said finally. Your species should fear me. I tried to steal your minds, your dreams, your very essence. Why do you offer help? Jake kept his hand extended. Because everyone deserves a second chance? Even someone who has made terrible mistakes. Dr. Chun stepped forward, her scanner still reading the keeper's vital signs. Your biological systems are failing. The overload damaged your connection to the facility's life support. If you don't disconnect from these machines soon, you'll die. The keeper's patterns flickered with what might have been amusement. Perhaps that would be for the best. I am a relic of a failed species, a creature that can only exist by consuming. Others, death might be merciful. That's not true, Jake said. You've been alone for 200 years, with nothing but stolen memories to keep you company. You never learned how to truly live, but you could learn now. Carlos had been examining the keeper's organic connections to the facility. Captain, these cables aren't just life support. They're also what's been keeping her trapped here. She's been connected to this system for so long, she doesn't know how to exist without it. I have never been truly biological, the keeper admitted. My people enhanced themselves with technology until we became more machine than living being. When they evolved beyond physical form, I was left behind because I could not let go of this hybrid existence. Danny, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. So you're afraid of being fully alive? The keeper's eyes focused on him. I am afraid of being incomplete. Without the stolen dreams of others, I have no creativity, no imagination, no purpose. I am empty. No, you're not, Jake said firmly. You've been filling that emptiness with things that don't belong to you. But the emptiness isn't the problem. The emptiness is space for you to grow into. Jake moved closer to the keeper, ignoring the sparking cables around her. Human children are born incomplete too. They can't walk, can't talk, can't take care of themselves, but they learn, they grow. They become more than they were. You can do the same. I am centuries old. It is too late for me to learn to be something new. It's never too late, Chun said. Your neural pathways are still flexible. Your consciousness is still capable of growth. You just need to stop trying to fill yourself with other people's experiences and start creating your own. The keeper looked around the chamber at the thousands of containment units that had held her victims over the centuries. What about all the species I destroyed? The civilizations I helped end? How do I make up for that? You can't, Jake said honestly, but you can make sure it never happens again. You can use your knowledge to help others instead of harming them. Slowly, carefully, the keeper began to disconnect herself from the organic cables that had sustained her for so long. Each disconnection sent shockwaves of pain through her system, and her patterns dimmed further. It hurts, she gasped. Growing always hurts, Jake replied, but it's worth it. As the last cable detached, the keeper collapsed to the floor. For a moment, Jake thought she had died. But then her patterns began to pulse again, weaker than before, but somehow more natural. I can feel it, she whispered. For the first time in centuries, I can feel my own thoughts without the influence of stolen dreams. It is terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Jake helped her sit up. Without the constant flow of harvested consciousness, the keeper seemed smaller, more vulnerable, but also more real. What is your name? Jake asked. Your real name, not just your function. The keeper thought for a long moment. I had a designation once, but it has been so long since anyone used it. In your language, it would be something like Seeker of Understanding. But that name belongs to who I was before. Then choose a new name, Chun suggested. Something that represents who you want to become. The keeper looked around the chamber, then up at the emergency lights still flashing overhead. Dawn, she said finally. I would like to be called Dawn. It represents the beginning of something new. Dawn it is, Jake said with a smile. Over the next several hours, the crew of the Aurora's Edge worked to help Dawn adapt to her new existence. Without the facility systems to support her, she had to learn to regulate her own biological functions. It was like watching someone learn to breathe for the first time. The silence is the hardest part, Dawn admitted as they sat in the ship's medical bay. For centuries, my mind was filled with the voices and dreams of thousands of species. Now there is only my own thoughts, and they seem so small. That's because they're yours, Jake explained. They're not stolen or borrowed. They belong to you completely. That makes them precious, even if they seem small. Dawn tried to smile, an expression that looked strange on her alien features but somehow genuine. I am beginning to understand. The dreams I harvested were never really mine. They were echoes, shadows of real experiences. But my own thoughts, however simple, are authentic. Carlos had been working to shut down the facility's harvesting systems permanently. Dawn, the database contains information about all the species your people encountered. If you're willing, we could use that data to try to help any survivors. We might find, Dawn's patterns brightened slightly. Yes, I would like that. Perhaps I can use my knowledge to heal some of the damage my kind has done. As the Aurora's Edge prepared to leave the facility, Dawn stood in the main chamber one last time. The thousands of empty containment units no longer hummed with power. The organic cables that had sustained her lay lifeless on the floor. You sad to leave? Chun asked. No, Dawn replied. This place was a prison, not a home. I built these walls to keep others in, but I was the one who was truly trapped. Jake placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to be trapped anymore. You can choose your own path now. But I do not know how to choose. I have never made decisions for myself. That's okay, Jake said. We'll help you learn, and eventually you'll help us too. That's how partnerships work. As they boarded the Aurora's Edge, Dawn experienced something she had never felt before, anticipation for the future. Instead of consuming the dreams of others, she was beginning to dream her own dreams. That night, as the ship left the alien facility behind, Dawn attempted her first natural sleep in centuries. She lay in the medical bay, surrounded by the gentle sounds of the ship's life support systems and the quiet breathing of her new companions. For the first time, she didn't watch others sleep. Instead, she closed her own eyes and let her consciousness drift into natural rest. Her dreams were simple and strange, images of starlight and friendship, memories of Jake's kindness and her crew's willingness to help someone who had threatened them. When she woke the next morning, Dawn found Jake sitting nearby, reading from a tablet. Did you watch me sleep? She asked. Jake looked up and smiled. For a little while, I wanted to make sure you were okay. But mostly I was just reading. Were you afraid I might try to harvest your dreams again? No, Jake said. I was making sure you felt safe enough to have your own dreams. Dawn felt her patterns pulse with a warmth she had never experienced before. It was the feeling of being cared for, of belonging somewhere, of being valued not for what she could take from others but for who she could become. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For showing me that being empty isn't a curse. It's just the beginning of being filled with the right things. Jake stood up and headed for the door. Welcome to the crew, Dawn. Let's go see what new dreams we can build together. As the Aurora's Edge sailed through the stars toward home, Dawn began the long journey of learning to be truly alive. She would stumble sometimes, and the temptation to return to her old ways would always be there. But she was no longer alone, and for the first time in centuries, that was enough.